All right. Thanks so much for being here and being at our Black History Month celebration with the entire Greek University team. I am Dr. Mike Ayalon, and today our very talented panelists are going to be talking about Black history, higher education, and the power of Greek life. I'll go ahead and introduce our panel. Starting first with Ms. Tish Norman. She was named 2023 and 2024 Speaker of the Year, and in 2025, she was voted Most Valuable Player by the Greek University team. Ms. Norman is the lead trainer and founder of Transforming Leaders Now, Inc., a consultancy specializing in diversity, equity, and inclusion and corporate training solutions. She is a skilled edu trainer with instructional experience at every level. Tish has experience working with leading brands in the career development industry, primarily focusing on DE&I and interpersonal skills. Tish has delivered over 1,000 paid talks throughout her career, including presenting her research at the Dr. Joseph H. McMillan National Conference on the Black Family in America and the National Council for Black Studies. Having spoken in 46 states and 14 countries, Tish maintains a very active speaking schedule, keynoting at dozens of leadership conferences and campuses every year. Tish is an adjunct professor of African American history at Kentucky State University, her alma mater. She has a Master of Arts in Education from Pepperdine University and currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia. All right, and our next panelist is going to be Eddie Francis, and students throughout the United States have referred to Eddie as very interactive, insightful, inspiring, relatable, and amazing. He is known for his energy and humor. Eddie spreads the gospel of ethical and effective leadership. His topics include the leader-follower relationship and followership, also personal leadership, and also personal branding and career preparation, leadership through philanthropy, and the National Panhellenic Council members' leadership development. Eddie is very well versed in leadership studies, and he addresses fraternity and sorority leadership on his podcast, which is called EthoCast. Eddie earned his master's degree in strategic leadership from Tennessee State University. He's a member of the International Leadership Association, the Press Club of New Orleans, and the American Marketing Association. Eddie is the proud husband of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated member Dr. Halima Leek Francis, who's amazing, by the way, and the proud father of Stevie. I'm a big fan. What can I say? Our next panelist is Edson O'Neill. He has spoken at numerous conferences and universities, motivating and bringing the best out of students and advisors through his interactive talks and passion for being a servant leader. Edson has several diverse workshops, which range from supporting Divine Nine and multicultural groups, developing strong cross-council collaborations, and cultural competencies. He also shares his story of resiliency and gets raw about his issues with depression and how being vulnerable allowed him to be free and to become the champion that he is meant to be. Edson gains his strength and his passion to serve people from his family, deriving from his Caribbean heritage and background, as well the mission and values his dear fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, has bestowed to him. As a huge Spider-Man fan, one of his favorite quotes is, "With great power comes great responsibility." Edson's great power is to serve, give back, support, and to motivate others to be great. And last but certainly not least, Trayvon Bryant, a college football player with dreams of playing in the NFL, when he suffered a traumatic knee injury, tearing his ACL, MCL, both medial and lateral meniscus and patellar tendon, all in one snap. His life changed in an instant, and he had to figure out a way to reinvent himself. Trey's educational, professional, and athletic leadership experiences have allowed him to develop different concepts and perspectives on how to effectively lead through adversity and opposition. Trey uses his Division I football experience to motivate and challenge those who have faced any level of difficulty or challenge their position of leadership. As a residential hall director at the University of New Hampshire, Trey has worked with students closely through their personal and their professional development, and he's sharing his message through Talking with Trey and is now uplifting people all over the world. And he's also starting his doctoral journey this fall at, of course, the University of New Hampshire. Welcome to our wonderful panelists, very esteemed. I am super excited to have all of you for an incredible conversation that I know all of our fans are going to absolutely love. So welcome to everybody. I do have some questions that I kind of thought about prior to this event that I think is going to help us to guide our conversation. So feel free to jump in there and let us know what you think about some of these questions. Now, first off, historically, we know that Black students have had to create their own spaces of belonging throughout history. Now, how do we see that legacy showing up today?
Who wants to jump in on that one?
I'll jump in. Um, I think the way that Black students are showing that legacy of creating a sense of belonging is figuring out where their opportunities are on campus. One of the pieces of research that I enjoyed reading years and years ago was by Dr. Walter Kimbrough, also known as the Hip Hop Press. And something that he wrote about was Black students being members of Black student organizations on predominantly white institution campuses. And he found that with a lot of these students, they were able to fail forward because when they were able to work with one another on campuses, they had a safe space to try things, to experiment, to speak to people who understood their language. And they were able to do it without feeling as if someone was judging them. We still see this. It's not really any different. I mean, I'm someone who graduated from a predominantly white institution, and you're seeing it right now. You're seeing it with the surgence of Black students who are joining Black organizations on campus. They are advocating for each other. They're advocating for themselves. And so that is continuing. But what they're doing is they're finding those safe spaces. And it could be so many different types of safe spaces. I was an officer in the Black Student Union at Loyola University, New Orleans. And you have students who are still joining those types of organizations, even if they're not explicitly called a Black Student Union. It's the fraternities and sororities of the Divine Nine that they're joining. It could be a faith-based organization on campus that they're joining, or they could be finding some sort of fellowship with one another with fellow athletes, student athletes. But whatever's going on, the students are finding these safe spaces on campuses, specifically predominantly white campuses, where they are trying things with these student organizations and they're figuring out where their safe space is, but they're also figuring out where their strong spaces are. And that's how they are continuing to work with one another. That's how they're continuing to develop their own sense of leadership so that they can move the needle to graduation.
So, like my colleague Eddie said here, I would tend to agree with that. I would even go further to say we see now more than ever um, an uptick in African American student-led organizations. You didn't see that 50 years ago like you see now. And I will even say on PWI campuses and HBCU campuses. So people are getting creative. It's the Women of Color Association. It's the Sisters Going Somewhere. At my alma mater, KSU, it's a play on Black Girls Rock. It's KSU Girls Rock. So you see a lot of organizations. I think we need to be mindful that belonging is not just something that needs to take place for Black students at PWIs. Belonging needs to take place for Black students at HBCUs as well, because maybe everybody isn't in the D9. Maybe everybody isn't an athlete. Maybe everybody isn't on, in the honors college. So there are spaces where students who aren't in those co-curricular activities still need to feel a part of a community. So I think what we're saying, to answer your question, Mike, how do they see this legacy, or how do we see this legacy still showing up now? I think we still see it showing up as far as your imagination can take you. At 2 weeks ago, I saw a kid over here at the AU Center. Y'all know, for AUs, those who are watching, Clark Atlanta University, Morehouse Spelman, Morris Brown, they're all within about a 16 block radius, not even 16 block, less than that. Anyway, my point is there was a quarter zip and tie group every Tuesday, because it's a trend now, right, Edson? Everybody's rocking the quarter zips, right? Look, Trey look like he got one on right now. You have a
Yeah, yeah. Trey's in
no?
the crew.
Oh, okay. Trey's in the
Yeah.
crew. So you have a, if you ask me, an act of resistance from a group of young black male collegians who said, no, 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 we're not going to walk around with our pants sagging. No, 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 we're not going to walk around with our hair in our face and locks all so you can't even see who you're talking to. We're going to bring dignity back to what the black male collegian used to be. So on every Tuesday, we're going to rock quarter zips and ties. So that means a button up shirt. You can wear jeans, you can wear your Dockers, you can wear your khakis, but you're going to rock a quarter zip with a shirt and a tie under it. And maybe that's what you do on Tuesdays, right? So I think as long and as wide and as deep as your imagination can take you, we will see African American student leaders carving out these spaces for them to really fit in and feel that they're carrying on a legacy that was established a long time ago. It's not new, it's just a resurgence, it's just packaging it differently.
Nice. What about you, Edson, Trey? Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I like what Tish said about, there may be some students who are not a part of Greek life or not athletes. I think what we see there is that Black students, they instinctively and naturally try to find connection and psychological safety within a group that resembles them to where they don't necessarily have to perform, but where they can take a deep breath and be seen as who they are, but also have a group of people that supports them. My experience of being at University of New Hampshire, PWI, there weren't many people at our campus. I think our percentage of POC was like 0.6. Yeah, it was very low. And so you would see the faculty members of color, their office would be full of athletes, would be full of students of color who would just come in and hang out in their office because that was a space, right, that was familiar to them, being far away from home or being in a place where there wasn't much representation. And those students, as Tish said, right, this it's the same thing, right? We're just repping it out. They're trying to find that connection. They're trying to find that support to be able to carry out this legacy that was set before us by our ancestors who have done great things to help us succeed in life. And so that's something that I think is really prevalent in how we're continuing to make change and keep our name, on the stones that our ancestors have set in place for us to continue to keep riding on. So yeah.
Very nice. All
All
right.
great things. All great things that everyone says. I don't really have anything to add, but I like to share a story of my time working, in higher ed. Well, I still do work in higher ed, but at my time overseeing activities, I'm working at a PWI, small private Catholic institution, working with a student who wanted to start a new organization, and she wanted to start a Black Student Union. So as she was getting ready to start a Black Student Union, I told her, I said, hey, like, you can do the steps needed to create this organization, but because of the name and the nature of our institution, it might have to be a different name. So we'll work towards that, but we'll see where it goes from there. She did everything that she had to do to kind of get going, the signatures, the constitution, everything to get the organization started. She came to me, she said, Edson, I'm gonna be very honest with you. I want to call it Black Student Union. I want us to be Black Student Union. I want to like really push our agenda moving forward. And I told her, I said, are you sure? I am more than happy and I will fight for you. I will go to bat for you. But I want to make sure that you are sure that you want to do this. Students said, yes, I want to move forward with Black Student Union. I said, no problem. I went to my superiors. We had conversations. I said, here's what they want to do. What can we do to make this happen? They gave me some different initiatives, different things that needs to be done. I went back to the student. I said, hey, they informed me that they were like this and this and this information. They want that, just to kind of show your what you really intend to do. And then after going through the process, the higher ups and university felt like this would be a great addition to our university and can help really diverse our student population and gave me the go ahead to allow her to call this organization Black Student Union. And for the university to support that initiative. And when I told the student that, that pretty much you've won, like I could tell she was like, wow, like I stood for what I believed in and we actually made it through. Like we did it. You know what I'm saying? So to to be a part of that journey with that student was amazing. To provide a space for her to have the empowerment to do that was also because most of us would say, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to call it that. I asked her, are you sure you want to do this? She said, yes. And I said, okay, I'll ride with you. Let's go. And, the university support our initiative and, they were able to be called Black students. So that's examples of the legacy that's continuing on college campuses today.
That's a great, if I can jump in, that's a great story. And I'm actually glad that you shared that story rather than trying to give an answer because stories matter. And your student at the time would not even have been inspired. Let me say it this way. She wanted to go the route of getting a constitution, getting bylaws. She, going the PC route of getting a student organization established on campus, which is fantastic. But here's what I thought of while you were talking, Edson, which is why students nowadays are sometimes of the mindset to have or start a movement rather than just starting a club like a BSU or something like that, right? The quarter zip is a movement. It may not be a club like the Black Student Union or NSBE or Black Girls Rock, but it may be a movement that can catch on. I attended a Black Study Scholars Conference here in Atlanta back in October, and there were thousands of scholars there. Everybody from Kimberly Crenshaw. I mean, there were thousands of scholars there who had all gotten degrees in some sort of, African American studies, Africana studies, Black history, a terminal degree, not just a master's, but a terminal degree. That would not have been possible. I don't know how any other way to say it, right? That would not have been possible if in 1968, the year my parents got married, at San Francisco State College, Northern California, did students who didn't have a permit, Edson, right? Who didn't have a bylaw, they started to get together with books and they would sit on the grass on campus and they would read their books and have intellectual discourse about African and African American studies and African American history because they were students at San Francisco State College of color that did not have a course offering in their history. So they didn't wait for permission. They started a movement. They started a movement that gained momentum where more students came out, more people came out. It got bigger so much that they started to need a classroom. Then they started to get professor support. And then they started to get people donating books. They went on a strike to say, hey, we need to have some professors at this school teaching these courses about us and our history, just like we learn about Greek, Latin, French, blah, 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 blah. And that, as we know, is the genesis of the Black Studies movement. It started with just people sitting on the grass, having conversations with books and talking, right? So those things, Mike, are still happening these days where students are carving out space, time, intellectual bandwidth to belong and then to spread that beyond the space that they're in. So I just wanted to share that about, the start. Sometimes you don't need a permission slip. Sometimes you do it, right?
That's right.
Sometimes you just do it. So
That's right. I was talking to an advisor earlier today, and she was talking specifically about NPHC. And she said that the chapters of the NPHC, they're much smaller than, let's say, Panhellenic. She was talking about Panhellenic being about 100 women. And in NPHC, you're talking about maybe 4 or 6. There was one chapter that had 0, where a grad student was holding it down. Okay. And she said, Mike, these students in NPHC are burned out. They have job after job after job. They hold multiple positions in the organization. So the question is, how can these advisors better support Black students that are navigating both the campus culture, right? Trey's talking about Black students being 0.6% of the student population on the PWI. And they're also navigating Greek life with all of the pressures and burnout. How can advisors better support these students?
Hmm.
I got an answer, but somebody else go first.
Uh-oh.
He's getting
Yeah,
ready.
go ahead.
All right, let me tee you up, sis. So I think one of my favorite leadership quotes is, "Don't be so worried about hitting the ground running, hit the ground listening." And one of the things that I find that a lot of NPHC groups are really frustrated with is that they feel as if they're not being heard. They feel as if they're not being listened to. They say, well, we do it this way. We don't rush. We don't do it this way. We don't do it that way. We have our secrets. We have our traditions, our customs. We have students coming up to us asking us, well, why is it even necessary to have a black fraternity and sorority? Isn't that racist, right? And a lot of times they feel as if the NPAC advisors don't necessarily have their backs on this stuff. They might feel that the student affairs people don't have their backs on this stuff. And so I think the first thing that these folks need to do is they need to listen intently. I think they also need to talk to the custodial alumni chapters and alumni chapters to get more perspective. Because Tish, to your point, what they're going to hear is they're going to hear a lot of stories, and in a lot of situations, what these advisors find out and student affairs professionals find out is, man, this has been going on at this university for decades. This is not new. This is not new that this chapter is struggling with 3 people and 4 people, and they all graduate and they have to start the whole thing over again. And so I think that is the first thing. I think the second thing, though, is that they have to figure out how to facilitate introductions among Black students on campuses.
Yep.
Because a lot of times what happens with us as Black students, especially the predominantly white institutions, is that we get there and we don't know where to go, what to do, who to talk to.
Yep.
We have no earthly idea. Loyola University in New Orleans is a streetcar and a bus ride away from where I grew up in New Orleans, but I still felt like I was in an entirely different universe when I got there. And so I had to figure out who to talk to, and I had to figure out how to talk to him. Now, had it not been for this brother named Emil Bagneris walking up to me and asking me, Eddie, are you interested in coming to, do you want to come to our interest meeting? I wouldn't be an alpha right now, probably, right? But that doesn't always happen. So a lot of times what has to happen is that the student affairs professionals have to figure out how to facilitate these introductions, and they have to work with these students. And right now we're dealing with the so-called COVID kids. We're dealing with a lot of students who don't necessarily have the social skills that millennials had or Gen Xers had or baby boomers had. So a lot of these students are really trying to figure it out. These are Gen Zers and now Gen Alpha trying to figure out how to literally break the ice and have a conversation with other people. And a lot of that, I think, has to be facilitated in some way, shape, or form. But the other thing that needs to happen is that when there are incidents that happen, then student affairs has to have these people back. When I was at Loyola, one of the most disappointing incidents that happened was there was a party that we had. And we were so proud of this party because all 6 Alpha chapters in New Orleans had gotten together to throw a party at Loyola. Little old Loyola. We didn't expect this to happen. We had so much fun at this party. And then another frat came in and there was a little tension, there was a push and a shove, and it just ended. It ended, right? I knew a bunch of guys in the other frat, and I said, hey, go get your boys, no big deal. The following Monday, the headline in the student newspaper was Riot Breaks Out at Alpha Phi Alpha Party. There was no riot. It was a push and a shove, and it was done. and we had a blast that night. We had so much fun with the guys who came in and we had the misunderstanding with. Like, we all got together and had fun together. The disappointment was that the only people who had our backs in this incident was the university police department, because they said, we know this isn't what happened. We know good and well this isn't what happened, and we're going to write an op-ed for you.
Did
We,
they?
we,
Did
they,
they?
they did follow up, but the problem was, Tish, the damage was done.
Yeah.
The damage was done. As far as the students at Loyola were concerned, there was a riot at the Alpha Phi Alpha party. And one of the things that made us so angry is that on Fraternity Row outside of Tulane, there were fire engines, there were police units, there were ambulances every single weekend. People getting hurt seriously, all kinds of stuff happening. And the group of people who we needed to have our backs, student affairs, did not have our backs.
So Eddie, when Mike asks, what can Greek advisors do to support these small numbers and these struggling chapters? What is the difference, right?
Yeah.
Between their awareness of why the Alpha Party got blown out of proportion when it was 98% constructive and 2% foolishness.
Right.
But then over here, there were fire trucks. And what does an advisor need to do to create awareness around those differences?
And that's how I was going to wrap this up. That's how I was going to put a bow on it, by saying that what the advisors need to do is stand in the gap to administration, and they need to stand in the gap with other arms of the university, the student newspaper, the folks who, again, the administration, but then also with the faculty senate and all these other types of entities around the university. It would help if student affairs stood in the gap with these students, not for these students, but with these students, and said, listen, these guys are doing some great, great work. Their numbers should be higher. Please, whatever issues you have with them, we need to talk about those issues honestly. Don't go in the shadows and ruin reputations. So that's what I would say, is something that could be a beginning of it, because I know there's a lot more that could be done.
I would love to jump in on this one. Speaking to advisors specifically when it comes to supporting our students, I think one thing that advisors can do is ask better questions. Teach our students how to ask questions. We don't ask enough questions. I have a talk on intrinsic motivation, right? And igniting your intrinsic motivation. And within that, I go into this study that talks about, intrinsic motivation comes from a person's curiosity, right? Their curiosity to explore and to accomplish other goals, right? As they accomplish goals, they're looking for the next goal that has a higher challenge to it, right? And so as a person accomplishes something, their curiosity for the next thing is what drives their motivation to explore more. And so I think with our young kids, right, coming from adolescent to young adult, and they're trying to accomplish these great things, they are very curious to figure out, how do I navigate these dual realities that I'm living, from who I am culturally to who my institution wants me to be in order to be successful, right? How am I going to conquer this, right? Being who I am. And so I think when advisors can teach students how to ask the right questions, and they can ask students the right questions, that allows the students to be able to think for themselves, right? To go trial and error, to be able to figure out the things that they need to figure out in order to be successful. But us as advisors, or you all as advisors, also leading them, right? Your questions are leading them to where you think they should go. When you reach that milestone, that student also feels like they played a part in figuring out their own dilemmas. I have a student who currently at the school that I work at, who is of Latin descent. He has a white advisor, and he was talking to one of his teachers. He hasn't been doing well academically and is kind of struggling. And he was talking to one of his teachers who he wants to be his new advisor. Do y'all know what this man said? He said the reason why he wants a new advisor is because his current advisor when there is trouble, when there's an issue, his current advisor is quick to fix things. He just does it for him. He writes the email or he tells him exactly what to do. And he said, I'm not used to that. I want someone who's going to ask me questions, who's going to lead me to help me figure out what it is that I need to figure out. And that's why I don't want to be with him, because he just fixes it, but it doesn't teach me how to not run into this challenge again. And so I think if our advisors can get to a place to where they're not so eager to fix a problem, fix a challenge, fix a situation, and can get to a point to where they're asking students questions to figure out, okay, where am I in this situation? What tools and skills do I already have that can help me figure out what the next step is? And I'm with you every single step of the way to help you get there. And so in terms of support, I think that our advisors can start to lead with questions and teach our students how to start asking questions of their own lives, right? That whole curiosity part is the reason why we leave home and go to college. We want to see what else is out there, right? How can we continue to feed into our kids' curiosity to explore more and to conquer things so that they can become masters in the skills that they're trying to achieve?
Yeah. We all attended, or have in the past attended, the Association of Fraternal Leadership and Values, AFLV slash NBGLC, the National Black Greek Leadership Conference that was started by my fraternity, y'all fraternity brother, Robert Page, years ago. And that essentially is a dual conference. Okay. There is programming specific, there is a lunch, there is a town hall, there are specific and intentional programmatic thrusts for the NBGLC community at that conference, right? What would it look like on our PWI campuses, big and small, if admissions was able to identify who the African American students were who were incoming, and just like AFLV and NBGLC and or an African American or BIPOC graduation ceremony, which some schools still have, what would it look like if during freshman orientation that those students had a special concurrent session where they were introduced to all of not only the Black auxiliaries on campus, the Black support systems, but the Meet the Greeks, but the Black faculty, but, okay? So that from the moment they get on campus, they know where and who their resources are. We find out, and then I'll yield. We find out that you do better when you have self-love first. If you hate what you look in the mirror, who looks back at you in the mirror, you certainly are not going to thrive in a room when you're the only chocolate chip in the cookie. You're just not. You're going to not stand on business and love yourself and operate with confidence and self-assuredness. You're going to operate from a place of self-hate. So if you can get to the campus, and as you get acclimated and you meet the deans of this school, they take you on a campus tour so you know where you live, where the CAF is, you know where this is, you know where if you learn the students in the same way, could there be, imagine if there were specific cultural intentionality in acclimating Black students to these campuses, from Ohio State, where there's 40,000 students, to a small school like where Edson said he was the advisor. So students know where to identify a sense of connection and community. And so then when it's time for these groups to recruit, they've already got a connection that's bigger than just the Greek connection. They know Trey as a friend. They know Trey because he's there in his major in chemistry, right? It's not just, oh, Trey the Eddie the Alpha. No, I know him beyond that. That dude helped me move my bag in my dorm room. He's so cool. He's a good guy. It's that connection, right? So I would say fight the powers that be and see how people can get very radical but necessary programming that's culturally sensitive for students to come in, so that hopefully they won't get to dwindling numbers and struggling chapters with 0 people or 1 person, and that 1 person is graduating in 60 days.
That's right. Edson, what do you think?
I mean, like Eddie, Trey, and Tish gave some great examples and great information. I would just add a little piece of as far as relatability. Like you have to be able to relate to these students. So as a former advisor, I always made sure to be relatable and share stories of when I was in college. Here's what I went through. So when they would hear the stories of what I went through as a president of my chapter, they'll be like, wow, you went through the same thing. So how did you manage it? And through my story, they were able to help themselves to create what worked for them to push through those types of situations. I didn't tell them what to do, but I gave them and sharing my story, they were able to be like, wow, okay, so it's into this, it's into that. How can I do this to navigate what I'm going through? You know what I'm saying? And in building that trust and relationship and that relatability, they come back and give me updates. So like, hey, here's kind of what I want to do. Like, do you think is this? Do you think this is the right way? And my answer will always be, I don't know. Do you think it's the right way? Tell me if this is the right way or not. I always push it back on them to empower them to make the decisions. So what everyone said is great, and just I like to end with just that relatability factor.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. One of the things I was thinking about this week, obviously, we lost Jesse Jackson this week, brother of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. We're talking a whole bunch of alphas here. Dr. Martin Luther King, I think about that famous picture, right? With all the fraternities that are represented. And so, when I think about all of that, and Jesse Jackson really starting this movement for the Democrat Party in terms of other people to follow later, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, et cetera, et cetera. So, what makes organizations like Greek Life so uniquely powerful for leadership development among these Black students?
Ooh.
I'll start us off this time around. I'll start us off this time around. Um, from my perspective, I would say that what Greek Life does for Black students to have those leadership opportunities is the resource, the pathway, providing that avenue to, if this is where you want to be, this is a pathway that we can provide for you to get to that point of where you want to be. You know, Again, I want to share stories because I want to be relatable to everyone. So for me, you know, I'm the baby of my family. So all my older brothers are way older than me. So I never really had that brother sibling rivalry back and forth, anything. By the time I got to junior high, high school, they were already, in college, getting married, having kids, whatever it is. So I never really had that. I love my brothers; they love me, and if I need them, they're there. But I never really had that really close brotherhood bonds. So to go to a predominantly white institution to see guys that look like me that are involved on campus, that are well known on campus, that are respected on campus, that are setting a standard on campus. I saw that and I said, I want to be a part of that. And they also took a liking to me and kind of took me in as their little brother. Sometimes it was annoying because they'd be like, oh, look at Edson, and they kind of knock me in my head and stuff like that, whatever, showing me that love, young brotherly love. But when I needed them, they were there. And my first semester of my freshman year, I had a very rough time. And those guys were there for me when I needed them, so they provided me that space, that avenue, the resources, and that guidance that if I put my mind to it, I can make it. So I decided to take a leap of faith and I joined. And spring 2004, I became a member of the greatest organization ever, and in doing that, it allowed me a space to really fulfill what I was holding back myself from. I was involved on campus. I was the first ever Mr. Caribbean. I was an orientation leader. I was on the campus activities board. I was a student ambassador. Like I did everything on campus except be an RA. That was the only thing I did not do. I was like, I'm not doing
So
it.
would you attribute that to being in Alpha?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. 100%. 1,000, 2,000, 2,500, 100%. I look back and I say Alpha in a lot of ways saved my life.
Wow.
I wasn't in a good place. I thought I had suicidal thoughts. Yes, 1906%. I like that. I like that, Eddie. I had suicidal thoughts and I didn't feel that I belonged in the world. And Alpha was that support system that really got me over the hump. And it really helped me to really push forward and to really get involved in camps and really make a name for myself and to really get involved and to give back to the community. So what Greek Life does for Black students, it provides that support, it provides the avenues, it provides the resources, it provides the motivation to help you to achieve what you don't think that you can achieve. Because as Black people, we're always taught all the time, oh, you're not going to make it, you're not going to amount to anything. I heard those things all the time. And then in becoming an alpha, that really gave me the confidence of how to carry myself, how to walk into a room and to make sure that people see who I am. And if they don't see it, I will make sure that they do see it. How to feel heard, how to speak my voice, how to have the confidence and the courage, a growth mindset. It really provided that avenue for me to be the man I am today. So that's what it's from my perspective and from my experience. That's what Greek Life does for students of color, because it provides that avenue and those resources for students to really to go on that path that they deserve to be on.
I want to say two things. One, the first thing I'll say is everything that Edson just described. I'm going to go back to the previous question we were in. What can advisors do? Advisors, and Dr. Terrell Strayhorn wrote a lot on about Alpha, about cultural competency among MPHC advisors, right? And one thing that if you are if you are a non-black MPHC advisor or just an FSL advisor, period, it'd be important for you to know that a lot of the MPHC men and women alike have heard the same things that Edson has heard from their high school counselor, from their professors, from the person who hired them or didn't hire them on a job, from their academic counselor. They've heard it. They've heard it. So just to become aware that that wasn't something that went out in 1931, but it's still happening circa 2026, that's first thing, right? You got to be culturally aware that racism is not even just still alive. Now it's a wind being blown on the racism fire. So now people are just unapologetic about it now, right? So I think that's one thing for advisors to understand, that those are the reasons why not only these organizations were founded, but why they're safe havens and safe spaces for, and complex spaces, because you just heard Eddie's story about a little squabble. Well, the squabble wasn't with no white boy, was it? Correct me if I'm wrong, Eddie. Exactly. So the complexities of Black people surely are going to seep into our organizations, whether it's church, sports, music, frat, sororities. It's always because institutionalized racism is a part of the Black narrative, sadly. So that's number one. Number two, I want to say, Mike, those are really strong um, stalwarts, right? King, Jackson, now ancestor, um, Ralph Abernathy, Hosea, Sigma, Williams,
Williams, yeah.
right? And those folk were already mission driven before they put those letters on, right? So that just enhanced what they did. That enhanced who they were. That, but they are all HBCU graduates, right? They all were on a mission, and then those fraternal experiences just enhanced probably what they were doing anyway, right? So I say that to say, I'm writing chapter 2 right now. I'm doing a review of literature on, um, let's just say I'm reviewing about 70 sources ish. Okay. And to, I wish I could turn my whole off. It's just books everywhere. It's just thousands. My computer right now is sitting on 10 books right now. That's how it's this level, because it's up, right? But I would say, to understand not just the genesis of BGLOs, but to understand that members during a certain time of their life, their pledge experience, right, reflected what was going on in America. Ambassador Andy Young, former mayor of Atlanta, who also was at the Lorraine Motel during that tragic April 4th day with Dr. King, who is still living now. Andy Young, when pledging Alpha, said, our sessions were teaching us how to protect ourselves because people were getting lynched outside of our campus. So we weren't in our sessions talking about spitting the founders' names. We were in our sessions learning survival skills. That was a necessary tool at that time. So I would say, when we examine what is formerly known, that we knew for 70 years, pledging started in our organizations, maybe around the early 20s through 1990, right? When it was abolished. That doing that for 70 years, it's hard to just stop tradition of what these organizations were doing for decades. And so we have to talk about what the relevance of these organizations are now, and how the educational process can still benefit us like those educational processes benefited those people of that time.
What do you
So
think, Ed?
Mike, yeah, so Mike, I'm gonna make a shameless plug here that I just wrote an ebook about this, the D9 Leadership Blueprint. And the thing about it that I thought about is I really started with my own story. You know, after I get to college, and I tell people flat out, I don't want to be a part of any fraternity because I think that blank is stupid. Okay, I was just like, I'm not doing that. This is school days just came out, okay, and they just showed me how ridiculous this is. But I get into the Alpha Phi Alpha interest meeting and I find out that the fraternity actually embodies a lot of things that align with who I am. You know, I'm a competitive person. I'm driven to achieve things. I'm value driven. I want to affect change in some way. And I just found that kinship there. And when we talk about how it is that Divine Nine fraternities and sororities, NPAC fraternities and sororities are able to attract these type of people. Well, number one, this is 2026. So we are standing on the shoulders of giants for over a century. So we're already looking at people saying, man, you mean to tell me I can be in the same fraternity as, I can be in the same sorority as. But then on top of that, saying, well, what Paul Robeson did, what Jesse Jackson did, what Zora Neale Hurston did, or what any of these stalwarts did, what any of these people did, you now have students saying, you mean to tell me I can do the same thing? I can accomplish the same types of things? And if you have these students who, once again, they're driven to achieve things, they are focused on values, they want to affect change in some way, Also, they do have some respect for legacy, that is the recipe that winds up happening. But then the other thing, and this is something that I explored a little bit of in writing the ebook, is the principle of Ubuntu, the African principle of Ubuntu, the philosophy that says, I am because we are. And since we are, therefore I am. When you are going through your process in a fraternity or sorority, that's all you know. All you know is I am because this brother behind me is. He is because I am. I'll never forget that when I was going through my process, we were all having dinner together. And my line brother, number two, Carl, I'll never forgive you for this, Carl. Carl put ketchup on his corn. And the brothers looked at us and said, hey, number one, why don't you have ketchup on your corn? Number three, why don't you have ketchup on your corn? And we're sitting there going, because this is insane. And they said, yes, but this is also brotherhood. I'll never forget, one of my good friends who was initiated at Stanford telling me that he just lost his mind once when he was going through his process. And he was just so upset with his line brothers. And the big brother sat him down and he said, okay. He said, tell me about what happened. And so he's going through it and he's telling him about what his line brother did that was just so stupid. And he started reciting the poem If by Rudyard Kipling. And he said, okay, if you can keep your head about you when all about you is losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, believe allowance for their doubting too. And so he's walking him through this poem and showing him you're not the first to go through this and you won't be the last. You have got to learn how to keep your head. And so when you get into the mix of that, Mike, you start to realize that number one, you're doing something that is so much bigger than yourself. And you realize that when you put those letters on, it is way bigger than you, way bigger than you. But then as you get deeper into it, you realize that the other folks of the Divine Nine, they're your brothers and your sisters too. I joke all the time whenever I speak to students that I am a proud brother of Alpha Phi Alpha. But when I tell you that some of my best career connections are men of Kappa Alpha Psi, Kappas all around me throughout my career who are always there to say, Eddie, let me show you what to do. Let me show you how you do this. These men, they were my brothers. They were my brothers. And so I think that when students start to see all of that work together, and I think this is also another thing that needs to happen on these campuses where you have very small numbers, because it is no coincidence that at HBCUs, at a Kentucky State, at a Tennessee State, at a Dillard University, a Xavier University, it is no coincidence that the brotherhood across organizations can be so strong at those campuses because everybody, they are going through their processes together, they are getting initiated together, they come out together. When other students see all of that and they see that unity, then I think that's another thing that attracts them and says, man, these people are doing something really different. And I want to be a part of that really different thing that they're doing. And it speaks to a part of me. It speaks to a sense of purpose that I have. And I think that might be part of the mix that really helps a lot of people who are in NPHC fraternities and sororities kind of, as I like to say, jump to the front of the leadership line a lot of times. One more thing I want to point out, and this is very important. We did lose Jesse Jackson. We also lost Dr. Norman Francis, the president of Xavier University, who was president of Xavier for 47 years, a brother of Alpha Phi Alpha. So he was another giant that we lost.
Indeed. Ashe.
I say.
So, as we start to wrap this up, our conversation, I was thinking about Black History Month and what it means to each of you personally. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I want to hear what it means to you personally.
Come on, Trey.
Come on,
Start us
Trey.
off, Trey. Start us off, man.
So as y'all know, I'm not a part of Greek life at all, but I am Black, and so
Are you? I didn't know.
girl, don't you see this African royal black skin?
Are
Come on now. Listen, but I am Black, and when I think about Black history and what it means to me, I think about all my academic achievements. I think about my shortcomings. I think about just my story. You know what I tell when I speak about my father not being in my life and just being on this journey of trying to becoming the person that I needed when I was a teenager, when I was, you know, in my young adult stages. You know, it's I feel like the world is in our hands, and as long as we can believe that we can achieve it, we can do it. Um, I feel like, you know, there's a lot of things. It feels like there are a lot of things that are against us when it comes to systemic racism, when it comes to policies that are set in place that don't allow Black and brown people to easily succeed the things that their counterparts are achieving. I feel like it's, you know, Black history to me means that there is richness, there is power, there's so many things that have been accomplished for us already in life that it's a shame for us to look at ourselves as failures already when we've already accomplished so much as a people. And so to be able to look back on those things and to be proud about those things and to continue to see it as a pyramid that we are building, and we are already starting on top, right? Our people have already set a foundation. We just need to continue to keep setting the foundation for the ones that's coming after us, that's going to continue to keep building off the things that we're going to accomplish. And so yeah, that's what it means for me when I think about it.
For whoever's watching this replay, Trey may have said he's not affiliated with a Greek letter organization, but oh, I don't know, for the past 4 years, Trey, you've been speaking at Greek conferences. So you are very aligned and familiar with that community, which is even a testament to you are who you are first.
Mm,
And then if you're in a fraternity, okay, cool. So when you go to these conferences, you don't have to be affiliated to feed into these people.
right. They're humans first. Amen.
All right, I'm just saying.
I'm working on him. I'm working on him. Hopefully one day we'll get him.
One day.
One day.
He might be GDI. I mean, you know.
Yeah. No, but Trey, I've always told you, like, just because you're not affiliated to Tisha's point, like, you bring a perspective
Yeah.
that a lot of us can't see because we're all affiliated. You're not. So you can bring that outside perspective and bring a different perspective that we may not be see or clueless to because we're so involved within our organization. So I've always told you that you bring something to the table that some people wish they can bring. So power on, brother man.
Appreciate it.
All
Mhm.
right. I guess I'll go next. What does Black History Month mean to me? It means empowerment. It means survival. It means excellence. Um, when I say those things, when it means empowerment, it comes from a place of being empowered to be who I am and in spaces that may not be for me or may not support me or may not validate me or may not see me in the same place. I do feel empowered that you might not see, but I belong here. So that's where that comes from. When it comes to survival, dealing with the shortcomings of what we've had to come through and some things that we're still dealing with today. But in that empowerment, there's always light at the end of the tunnel. So to continue to look towards that light, and to always believe in yourself and to always fight the good fight. If it's worth it, go for it. Don't tell yourself no. Like, don't be in your own way. And I've talked with all of you most of you in this room, and we all always talk about how we're in our own way and we're in our own heads, and oh, this person said this and this and this, when we're allowing that to influence us to tell ourselves that we're not this and we can't do this. So overcoming those shortcomings to push through, and to understand that when you go through something else, like something else is going to happen as well. Trey and I have our talk. When you're ish, the true shall set you free. In our talk, we talk about embracing your scars and embracing who you are. And in doing that, it allows you to be free, and stuff like that. So, there's that and just excellence, man. I mean, just always being a step ahead, always just being excellent in whatever you're doing. Always finding ways to grow more and never settle. So if I'm at this place, all right, I'm here now. What can I do to get to here? All right, I'm here now. What can I do to get to here? And just continue pushing myself, pushing myself, pushing myself. And in doing it, also paving a way for others behind me. You know, um, Someone told me this years ago that my cup is full and I want what's in the cup to pour out and to pour in your cup and other people's cup. I don't want to pour on the floor. It needs to be poured in your cup and everyone else who I'm trying to support. And then when your cup is full, your cup needs to go in other people's cups to make sure that it keeps going. So that's what Black History Month means to me, just continuing to fill the cups.
Well done. Eddie,
Um,
what about you?
yeah, Black History Month to me is pride. Just pure, uncut, just pride. It's the it is the bravery of Christmas addicts. It is the social innovation of the civil rights movement. It is the beauty, the just the sheer beauty of the Harlem Renaissance to me. Um, you know, Black history to me is a source of spiritual wealth. It is the thing that keeps me going a lot of times. Yesterday I was in a meeting with a group of scholars actually, and I was probably the only one who didn't have a doctorate in this meeting. And I was also one of a couple of black people. And in that meeting, I said, one of the questions that came about was, how do we get America active again and America engaged? And I said the civil rights movement was the blueprint. I mean, it was the blueprint. It wasn't just Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr., as much as we love him, he was the figurehead of it. It was the strategy of Bayard Rustin. It was the support of Andrew Young, the support of Jesse Jackson, the support of all these legions of people, of Coretta Scott King. It was the support of so many people, Fannie Lou Hamer, and all these people who were the wind to his back, and he just did the part that they needed him to do in order to carry the ball. And when I tell you that the room just kind of felt silent and people were just like, oh, okay, well, I guess. And I'm going, no, you have the blueprint. You're just not using it. Because unfortunately, the sin of America is that Black History Month is something like, it's just something that the black folks do. But if you really want to save this country, a lot of the secrets of what needs to happen are in Black History Month. Because if Black history were not so powerful and enlightening and empowering, and if it weren't so inspirational, there would not be consistent efforts to suppress it. The people who are trying to suppress it know how powerful it is. They know it. And they are terrified of it. You know, but when I hear about our history, especially as history is getting made right in front of my eyes all the time, in front of our eyes. I was one of those people who bawled and cried like a baby when Barack Obama was elected. I couldn't stop crying. It took me like 30 minutes to stop, you know. But the thing is that when you keep seeing it and it keeps developing, then for me the pride just keep going. And I'm reminded every single day, especially during Black History Month and the other months of the year, I am reminded all the time of just how powerful the people whose shoulders I stand on are. And so for me, Black history is just pure pride.
Chris, before you bring us home, I just want to say one more thing with Black History Month. it also reminds me to assure that I'm celebrating Black history throughout the entire year. Like Black History Month just shouldn't be, oh, let's just all these events and bring these speakers and talk about it, and then oh, we get much first hits and we don't talk about these things again. So Black History Month is a great reminder and gives me ideas and gives me ways and avenues to where I can continue to have these conversations and to talk about it and to celebrate Black excellence throughout the entire year. And then when we get to February again in 2027, really highlighting it more. And then like, all right, we've highlighted this. What are avenues and things that I learned this month that I can continue throughout the entire year? So even though we have a month dedicated to us, Black history doesn't stop. Not for me. So that's what that also does for me as well. Miss Tish, bring us home, baby.
No, I love it. No, that's so good. I just want to say this real quick. Thanks to Hector and Patricia for jumping on, some advisors in the building. Thanks to our colleague Sarah for jumping on this engaging chat. Before I give like just my final thought, and thank you all just for staying on. I just want to say that because I know we're a little over time. Mike, what does Black history mean to you?
Boy, for me, I mean, it's learning. I love having this space. I know we've done this a few years now, and every time I learn something new and I get new perspectives, and it's like now I need to go read more about all of these people that were supporting Dr. King that we know were kind of in the background that I don't know as much about. So it becomes, work for me to go and learn more. So that way I can also talk about it and spread knowledge within other communities like IFC and Panhellenic that maybe really don't understand a lot of these things that we're talking about here today. So for me, it's learning more and appreciating more the contributions to our society collectively. So that's what it means to me.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I do, I have a couple thoughts. I'm going to go by them really quickly. So, many of us are affiliated on this call with D9 orgs, and I'm an AKA every day, right? I'm an AKA every day. Cool. But when I go to our conference, our Boulé, our biennial conference that's going to be in Las Vegas this week, this summer, it's going to be, 10,000 AKAs in Las Vegas this summer. At our regional conferences, we got 10 regions. When we go to those conferences, it just goes to the next level. Everybody has their colors on, everybody wears their Nelia at the park, everybody's stepping, everybody's hugging, everybody's skiing, chapters are meeting up, having luncheons with their college chapters, regions are having evening receptions. The celebration just goes to another level. That is when you can unapologetically step, stroll, sing, chant, hug, do all the things that personify and embody what being an AKA is, right? That to me is all that Black History Month is. We Black 365, 24/7. But just during the month is when it can be an elevated explosion and celebration of it. We're doing it in July at Essence. We're doing it in Chicago at Black Yacht Week. We're doing it here in Atlanta at the Atlanta Polo Classic. We're doing it everywhere. We're doing it at Afrochella in Ghana in December, right, Trey? We're doing it everywhere, but it's just during the month of February is when it can be celebrated just as if we were at a regional conference or something like that. So that's the one thing I wanted to say. Um, Du Bois wrote The Souls of Black Folks in 1903, and you would have think that he wrote it last week. So some of the same concerns dealing with the state of the Black American in the country where our blood, sweat, and tears are in the soil. There's something to say that that struggle is still having to be fought today. Was the struggle before he wrote that in 1903? Absolutely. But one thing that Black History Month was designed to do by Dr. Carter G. Woodson was to bring awareness, not just to white folks, but to Black folks too. So Dr. Carter G. Woodson was the second Black man behind Du Bois to get a PhD from Harvard. And he said, wait a minute, I'm at Harvard. I'm studying the Greek, the Latin, the Chinese. I'm studying the French. I'm studying the Portuguese. I'm studying all of these amazing accomplishments that all of these cultures made to education and to the world. Wait a minute, hold on. Africa didn't make any contributions? Somebody help me out. I'm studying all over the world, scholars from but Africa didn't make a contribution? So he went to digging and found out that the contributions, the places, the Mecca, where all of these scholars would find scientific theories and math, and they all came to Timbuktu. And Timbuktu was an epicenter of learning. And where was Timbuktu? It was on the majestic continent. Okay? So scholars who contributed to the entire global community, or as Martin Luther King and now his daughter Bernice King says, the world house. Those folk came and studied in Africa, but we're not taught those things. So I think it's really important for us to understand that our colleagues, Mike, our colleagues, Trey, the people we work with every day, Edson, the people who we see are dealing with this fight every day at work that we put this mask on that people are just completely oblivious for. NASPA is happening in the next couple days. And just like AFLV, there is a separate but equal, come on, somebody, African American community that gathers at NASPA every year. And they pray together. I've been in the prayer circle with Dr. Jamie Washington. There's a Sunday service where they get a choir. Dr. Dominique at Sigma at Kent State, he's the choir organizer. The cultural aspects of who we are and what we do is happening because racial battle fatigue is a real thing that sadly white colleagues do not understand that their Black colleagues go through every day, year after year, month after month. And it's not just in higher ed, it's everywhere. So back to that awareness and creating a sense of awareness, understanding that Kamala Harris was the 49th vice president in this country. It didn't hit me till I saw a picture. Y'all seen the pictures of all the presidents? It was white, 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 white. Boop. And you know you're vice president for 4 years. So for someone to think about that and have a conversation around it, that's what Black history means. And then to do it in June, do it in September. Don't wait till February to do it. Do it whenever. My cousin right now is posting all these pictures on social media that she's wearing these Afrocentric earrings to work every day during Black History Month. I was like, girl, wear those anytime.
Anytime, July.
Right. Why are you wearing them just this month? Wear them anytime. Make it fashionable. Do your thing, right? So anywho, just keep that in mind about awareness, about Black History Month. I love it and I hate it, right? Mike knows I used to have an old program called, boycotting Black History Month. Like, let's not make it Black History Month. Let's make Black History Month March 1st through January 31st. Just don't make it this separate thing. Infuse it in your classroom sessions, in your tests, in your food, at your office, on vacation, in the curriculum. Just normalize it so we don't have to be tired all the time. So finally, Black History Month is the soft life. Black History Month is love. Black History Month is Jill Scott releasing her new album that she hasn't done in 13 years. Black History Month is the Tiny Desk series. Black History Month is Tish taking people to Ghana every February. Black History Month is Eddie talking French at the conference in front of everybody. Black History Month is this conversation that we're having right now. Black History Month is Trey being an avid physical fitness guru and landing, doing the Iron Man. He lands like Iron Man, right? He did a backflip and land with his. That's Black History Month, right? Black History Month is Edson being a part of the diaspora, bringing the Caribbean flavor to the States, and us being aware that Black Americans ain't just Black like African Americans. We got dropped off all over this planet. America, North America, and South America just happen to be the largest concentrations of where the captives were taken. So Edson is part of the diaspora. That's Black History Month, right? His experience is totally different from ours. So Sarah, Hector, Patricia, thank y'all for coming on. I'm done. Those are my 2 cents. And hey, let's do this again. Like, it doesn't have to be next February. Let's do it again. Let's do it, for Juneteenth. Let's do it for the 4th of July. Let's do it for Labor Day, whatever. Let's have these conversations so they're not othered to just February.
Amen. Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much for being here. To our panelists, Trayvon Bryant, Eddie Francis, Edson O'Neill, and of course, Professor Tish Norman. Thank you so much for being here. To everybody in the audience, live, to everybody in the audience watching this on tape, thank you so much for being here. And if you want to bring any of these speakers to your college campus, go to GreekUniversity.org and book them today. Thanks so much for being here, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Patricia.